Borg, lower your shields and surrender your ships. We will add your biological and technological distinctiveness to our own. Your culture will adapt to service us. Resistance is futile.
Welcome to another edition of A Strange New Pod. Giraffe is on shore leave for the rest of the month as she's finishing her final round of testing for her initiation into the Jat Vash.
They really got to her, didn't they, man? She was Tal Shiar and now Jat Vash.
Yeah,
Oof.
She always goes substrata on that, so
Anything
hopefully
for the
that works out
costumes.
well.
Anything for the costumes. Uniforms, my bad.
And joining us as always, our Vice Admiral Eric, whose skill behind the keyboards are faster than any collective. We have... Come on.
It's true.
It is.
Show that chainmail. Come on. Show that chainmail. It's almost like Borg chainmail.
Look at that. He made that.
That's so dope.
I should make a tie out of it.
Yes.
Fleet Admiral Julian is with us as well, who would have definitely sent Hugh back with that virus and probably a stern talking to.
Not even a question. Not even a question.
No. I am Commander Hawk, and I will be your host for tonight. If you resist, you will be punished.
Ooh, sexy.
I got goosebumps. I'm convinced.
This week, we've waited long enough. It's part one of our Best of the Borg series. And this week, we are going to focus on the Borg on TNG, focusing on the episodes Q Who, Best of Both Worlds, part 1 and 2, and I Borg. All of which we had awesome watch-alongs for this week. They got intense.
They did.
Yeah.
It was like, we had a lot of people on those watch-alongs. It was really fun. Like, the chat was hopping this week. It's good to have watch-alongs going again on the Discord. And
yeah, totally.
Loving it.
Plus, we have some history about the Borg and more. And we're going to get into all that in just a moment. But before we do, Eric, we need to thank our Patreon collective members at the Ready Room level and above.
Do we? Yes, we do. All right.
Yes, we do. God,
I already said yes.
We do.
All right. So, thank you out there to Jeff Reeve, Mariah Gossett, Tallulah, Jen Stein, Tina Alexander, Joe Saporito, Noe Santo, Kung Hui, Takako Nagumo, Kara Kennedy, Mark, Fernando Nogales, SMK, Laura Linderman, Colin Davidson, Alan Davis, Shatterhand 2049, Jesco, MC Frodis, Michael Graham, Emily and Travis, Gildara, Cassie, Holiday, Strange Goo Pod, Maggie Light, Bartok's
Oh,
Mummy.
that's old.
Which one?
Oh,
sorry.
no, it's my fault. I keep forgetting to take the holiday part. So it's like Holiday Strange Goo Pod, but it should just be Strange Goo Pod because I'm a fool. A damn fool.
Yes.
It's still holiday. Wayne Ritz,
Sure.
Skona Vark, Sean, Jay Howard, Mahalani Uchiyama, Matt Harker, Joshua Lewis, Cassie McIntosh, David Willett, Tara Paulin, Slope 74, and Rude Parakeet.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. You keep the ship afloat.
Very much. Thank you. You guys freaking rock.
So on to the news, which I think Julian is going to handle.
Yes, news from Starfleet Command and the Federation News Network. Eric, one day we have to bring back the Federation News Network ticker. That was hella fun that one time.
News from across the galaxy.
Yes, news from across the galaxy. One, I know we had a few people in the patron chat asking about happy hour tonight. Sorry we missed it. Everyone in my family, including myself, is getting over either COVID or the stomach bug that is going around our area. It has been a mess since I didn't sleep in my bed from December 26th to January something.
Ew.
So it's been a weird couple of weeks, but so because we missed the happy hour today, we have two really fun shows coming up. 3, but 2 of them we're going to do happy hours for to make it up for you. So in 2 weeks time, we're going to be doing part 2 of our Best of the Borg, and that'll be for Voyager, and we will do a happy hour right before that show, and I'll have a Borg themed drink for that one. I had one in mind for tonight. I was going to do Instagram Live. I didn't get to it, so we'll do that one. For the Voyager show, we'll do a happy hour. We'll say 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. So be prepared for that. And then the week after that, which is the final week before Captain Picard week 2, We'll tell you at the end of the episode what that's going to be because we have a very special guest announcement and what those episodes are going to be. We will have a themed drink for that as well and a happy hour for that show. Same time, 7 to 9. So there'll be 2 happy hours in a row. Plus, Giraffe is in chat reminding trivia this Saturday. So you're not completely missing. Bring your drinks to trivia. And then the 2 happy hours we're going to have at the end of this month and the beginning of February. So, yes, but apologies. Life happens. Life finds a way. So, speaking of other things, the Wesley stickers, you saw them. They're here. The Wesley awesome stickers that Eric designed. They're going to go out this weekend. I will be stuffing them in envelopes. I also just ordered some new packaging for us with our logo on it. So that's cool.
Nice.
Upgraded. So those will go out. And then I think Eric showed me a design like a couple months ago.
Here's Prodigy.
A preliminary design. Sorry?
Here's the Prodigy one.
That one. So there's our yearly patron pin design that'll be being debuted shortly. I will have those made and send those out to you soon, to be determined. And then Captain Picard Week 2. I'm getting excited. Our full lineup for Captain Picard Week 2 is out. We will have schedules and our watch-along series for that coming up as well. Stay tuned for more details on that. Giraffe is our guru for that, getting everybody where they need to be. But fun things planned for that. Lots of giveaways. That's going to be great. Speaking of awesome things that are happening, this weekend, our friends at Trek Geeks, along with Roddenberry Podcasts, Trek Talks 2, which is a huge telethon featuring guests like Anson Mount and many others. John Billingsley, Bonnie Gordon are hosting it, and it's all to raise money for the Hollywood Food Coalition. And because of that, we are going to match any donations that our collective members or listeners make up to $200. Not saying that we're going to donate $200 if you donate $200, but we'll donate up to $200. So
you guys can donate more.
You can donate more. You
Worthy
can.
cause.
We won't. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to do cool
We
things
pour.
for you. But we pour. You can keep giving us your money at Patreon, which is much appreciated. You guys freaking rock at that. But yeah, check out Trek Talks 2. That is this Saturday. It's going to be awesome. And then I don't think I forgot. This is a flash giveaway because I forgot that I had it, and then I remember I had it, and then pre-show, I frantically went around looking for it. I'm going to turn off my background for a hot second here because we have an awesome giveaway for this week's pod. It is Borg themed. We are giving away a Locutus of Borg action figure. It is vintage. It is in the old TNG box. This is an awesome giveaway. And it's a really simple question that you need to answer. You can email us the answer at estrangenewpod@gmail.com. You could DM the answer on Discord or Twitter. You could answer it anywhere. It's simple. What ship was Admiral Hanson's flagship during the Battle of Wolf 359? Giraffe, I've bought a lot of these figures. It's Brittany's fault. Blame Brittany. Again, the question is, what was Admiral Hanson's flagship during the Battle of Wolf 359? You can DM us the answer. You can email us the answer, estrangenewpod@gmail.com. Super easy for this bad boy. He's so cool.
Look at him.
He's so cool. So yeah, let us know that. And then I'm gonna put my background on and I'm gonna give it back to Hawk here.
Hey.
Hey.
So, yep, DM your answers, not get yourself a vintage toy. Awesome. Well, this moves us on to the strange new loop. So, I know this applies to us and that, maybe not so much to the younger ones and that, maybe, I don't know. But what scared you most about the Borg as a kid watching that episode? Their initial episode and their introduction.
Oh God.
Oh, this is
We're
easy.
going with the initial episode. Okay. Oof.
Oh, the initial Q who?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
What was the thing that scared you the most when you first saw the Borg?
I mean, it was not just the visual of it. It was the whole attitude of the Borg. They were so cold and unrelenting, but they were human faced. So them being it's like seeing the Terminator for the first time, right? Because you assume they're humanoid and they have some sort of emotion, but they're not. And that's what scared me the most, is because they were robot people that had no feeling. And they just kept going, right? Like, there was no way to stop them. They were the Terminator. They're Star Trek Terminator.
I have so much to say about what you just said, Eric, about how they just don't stop, but that's going to come for like near the end of the episode. But that's a great answer, right? They just don't stop. And the scariest thing for me was, it wasn't even the look of the Borg, though. I think as I grew up a little bit, still just a kid, but they're just the look of them and like the paleness scared the hell out of me. But I remember one of the first times I watched this episode, either in syndication or, whenever it aired live, because it was in syndication. The thing that got me the most was the Borg drilling a fucking hole in the Enterprise and taking out like, what was it, like 4 decks?
Yeah.
And like it was nothing. And it's like, oh, okay. And as a kid, that's like, I feel like that's almost scarier than the Borg for some reason. I don't know. Maybe I was definitely a weird kid, but that was scary. Like,
because it was so surgical, and it was like they
just
held them there, and it was almost like a child with a magnifying glass playing with ants, right?
Exactly. Yep. Real quick, to go back to the trivia, because some people on the chat need to get the email again. It's astrangenewpod@gmail.com. It's also you could DM me on Discord.
How do you guys not have this email?
I know. Well, okay, there's some people who've only been here for a couple months.
That's fair.
We're giving them the benefit of the doubt.
We have new people.
Yeah. So that scared me a lot.
So for me, it had to be when they actually boarded the cube for the first time, and just seeing like rows and rows of these just lifeless automatons. And it reminded me of like walking through one of those wax museums and that, because it, like at any moment you kind of felt like they were going to wake up and touch you.
Oh
I don't like that.
Oh, yeah. So for me, that was the scariest part. So I understood why Guinan was like, flabbergasted when Riker even suggested it.
Yeah. Some good answers over on Discord. Draft just says they're so pale, which
YouTube?
They are. Yeah.
Not Discord.
Did I say Discord?
Yeah.
I'm so out of it tonight, guys. Over on the YouTube.
On the YouTubes.
Admiral Funniest Frontier, that's Joe. The hands and the eye attachments. Yeah. Those are scary as hell. Yep. Haven says the music. The music got me as a kid. The music from Best of Both Worlds got me as a kid. Like, that also scared the hell out of me. That's how good that the Borg theme was then. Matt wrote, seeing the shield once they adapted, you knew you were going down. Yeah.
The Tron shields the first time.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. Some good ones there. Anyway, yeah.
Very good ones. So without further ado, I think we should get into this. We're going to begin with a brief history of the Borg. They were originally created by Maurice Hurley for the episode Q Who, although their initial concept was teased collectively by the writers of TNG because they were looking for a new villain for the franchise. This went as far back as the season one episode, The Neutral Zone, and the unexplained destruction of the Federation colonies along the said neutral zone.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like a lot of people still don't know that. Right? Like when they confront the Warbird and everyone's like, oh, it's the Romulans. No, man. That was the Borg.
Yeah.
That was the Borg that did all that. It's pretty cool to like go back and the retcon of it. And yeah.
It's so explicit, and especially in the Romulan commander's evaluation of it. Once we had realized the devastation and that, we realized it could not be you, Yeah.
I love that because it's like a giant fuck you to Starfleet, but also like if it scared us then it's a serious problem, right?
Yeah. If we're actually here talking and breaking that silence we've had for 100 years?
Yeah. Yep.
Now, cybernetic villains are not a new concept in sci-fi. Definitely before the Borg. In Doctor Who, there were at least two different races in that of enemies that had similarities to the Borg. The Daleks, they were organic creatures that were hidden within fearsome mechanical armor. The Cybermen were also ones who assimilated other races, and that removing the brain, transplanting it into mechanical constructs that lacked any distinction, and they were meant to just service the collective, the Cybermen collective, and their agenda.
It's like they mixed the two together and came out with the Borg. This is the Borg baby.
That also this guy.
That guy. Look at that guy.
He's more machine than
the original Borg. Actually, I think the Cybermen are still the original Borg.
Yeah.
When did Doctor Who come out?
1965.
Oh yeah, the Cybermen take the cake.
Wait, no, not 1965. 1950. Oh my God, why don't I remember this anymore?
It's this one might have to go out to the collective and the
yes.
I'll remember in a second. I just have to. God.
But yeah, Vader's Vader's he's not necessarily a Borg, but he's cyborg and he's pale like a cyborg because
1963.
1963.
I was off by 2 years. God damn it.
Because he died in a fire. Didn't die, but Oh. Sorry.
I believe it was Tomb of the Cybermen was that arc that introduced them to the Doctor Who series. So what is it that makes the Borg unique and uniquely identifiable as one of the scariest of Star Trek villains? Well, first up, it's the lack of dialogue and interaction. Star Trek's always famous for their villains in their monologuing, right? Klingons do it. Romulans love to do it. The Borg were mostly just silent. When their voice was heard, it was only to state intention and consequence. If you resist, you will be punished. That's where that one comes from. They were not interested in discussion or arbitration. Secondly, the costume design. And this came from Dorinda Rice Wood, who was a costume designer for season 2 of TNG, but was replaced. She only stayed on for the one season, and she was replaced by Robert Blackman, who apparently stayed on for like 16 years after that. In purposely showing the humanoid face of the enemy behind the technology, there was that layer of tension added. Like a Borg drone could be anyone. The monochrome color scheme lacked any sort of distinction within the collective, which also signified that nobody was special.
Isn't that funny though? Because now, like, you watch Prodigy and you watch the Let Sleeping Borg Lie, and there's so many unique looking cool Borg in that episode, right? Yeah. Like that big horn guy and like the hammerhead shark Borg. I was like, okay, like this is pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's like TNG only really had the human cast to work with, and that Prodigy obviously, but it was just jet black. You can see it almost with it had definition but without definition. It was just metallic and those rubber and the tube sticking out of everybody's face. Secondly, one of the things that really separated the Borg from other kind of species was the ship design, and that came from Kim Bailey of Starlight Effects. It was a cube, just a cube, no lines.
What a brilliant design!
It really is,
right?
No lines or curves, nothing that could suggest any sort of like aesthetics or art to the creation. And that it's like when we see ships, we love their uniqueness and that. And
no one loves ships. No one loves ships.
No one loves ships. No,
right.
No one likes ships.
Everybody hates ships in Star Trek.
No. Just plot.
He's not even here, and we're still making fun of her.
She's in the chat though. She knows what's coming.
But she can't defend herself.
No, she cannot defend herself. Oh boy.
I know.
We're gonna catch shit in a month.
Oh yeah. And inside the ships, when we finally got a chance to look inside, all alcoves is only meant to warehouses crew, and that there's no living quarters, no comfort, nothing. And that wide shot that you see, it realized that these single cubes could house like thousands and possibly even hundreds of thousands of drones, which was infinitely more terrifying.
I would say the original inside of a Borg cube, the TNG era Borg cubes, not even the Voyager First Contact ones, the inside of those cubes come very close to the second or third thing that scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
About the Borg was the set design.
Yeah.
It just like, it's so cold. I get goosebumps like talking about it. It's so cold and just so sterile, you know. It's just heebie-jeebies.
It's all just work with them.
Yep.
So that moves us on to their introductory episode, the Q Who from season 2.
Q who?
Q Who?
Who?
He's on first. The Enterprise first contact with the Borg came out of a childish act by Q, lashed out at Picard, who after he claimed Q's help was not required. And the initial attack by the Borg, holding the Enterprise in place. This is getting at Julian's childhood fears. Holding the Enterprise in place with a tractor beam while a precision laser cuts through an entire section of the ship, along with the 18 crew members in those various sections. They managed to thwart the tractor beam and that, but that only tempts the crew to go inside the cube to gather more information, offering us our first look inside. So right now we're going to discuss what they find and why their discovery made the Borg so much scarier than we initially thought. And who would like to start?
Eric should start. I've talked a lot.
I have too. I'm just trying to think. Let's guess why they found what was the discovery that made.
Well,
really,
among other things,
I think it was more than like what I said. Like when they first transport aboard, like it was just like they did not care about any of the humans. Like that's what scared me, is that they were just like, yeah, who cares? These people are nothing to me. They're ants, and we are a collective.
Yeah.
And then when they finally killed that first Borg and another one came immediately on, you're just like, oh shit, they're on top of shit. And then he just sort of took off stuff from him, was like, I can use this. And then we're going to jet. And I was like, and when I was little, I wasn't sure if they transported the dead one back or they just disintegrated it because it left a shadow. So I sat there and was like, I think they just killed their own. And then that's creepy as enough. So enough. It's the silence. It's the coldness of this enemy, and it's just their disregard for anything there. They know that they're the shit, so they don't have to care about anything else. I thought that was terrifying.
Yeah, this came up in the chat, like, the other night when we were talking about it, and I made the analogy that, like, the crew of the Enterprise were basically to the Borg what angry bees are to us, once
terrifying?
The Borg
yeah.
Once the Borg realized that they had a little bit of sting in that, all they did was put their beekeeper mask on and just
literally
continued.
And they stung the Enterprise with a really big fucking laser.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah, but it is interesting when you talk about, like, when one shows up after one goes down and that, and how, it's like you usually think, like, they're there, a crewman shows up to save another crewman and that. No, it was there just to collect
spare parts and finish the job.
Yes,
yep.
Exactly. Yep. We come realize later that he was disconnecting that dead Borg from the collective and those parts. So yes, that body did disintegrate. It did not go back for hospitalization or surgery or anything like that. It was just disintegrated and made into organic tissue.
But I think like going back to your question about like what makes them so much scarier than initially thought, right? Because like it's not like the Enterprise hasn't come up on weird ships and, like that's their job, is seek out new life and new civilizations. So, it's not out of the realm of possibility to come up against a cube-like ship. But then think about like who the Enterprise has run into in like a season. And I don't even think Q-Who is half a season into season 2. I think it's early on.
Yeah.
Someone can correct me if I'm wrong there. But they've come across what? They came across the Q, which are the most benevolent and powerful beings, I think, in the universe, in the Star Trek universe. Yeah, okay, so literally midway through. So a season and a half. And then they've come across butt bugs, right? Which is also like, that's a big deal. They infiltrated Starfleet. But then you come across an enemy who cannot be defeated. You can talk Q into a corner and play his game and get him off your ship. Yeah. But the Borg are relentless. They're
Like you can find the head butt bug in that and just
destroy it and do what you did in that episode and like, super gore for Star Trek. But we know about the Borg Queen later on, but like she's nowhere to be seen in Q-Who, and that's for good reason, whether they had thought of the Borg Queen or not at that point. Just to have a collective mind and then to be able to adapt, like your weapons, everything just becomes useless. That's scarier than the Q. That's scarier than butt bugs. It's scarier than the Romulans, because you're already in a Cold War with the Romulans. It doesn't really matter. I mean, it does, but it's just terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
It's because it's so otherworldly than anything, right? There's nothing like it. So again, they have no reference of what to do. Like they're all guessing, hoping for the best, and at the end, the fact that Picard had to ask her for help to fix the situation, like that's terrifying. Like this person that we've known for 3 seasons is just like, you know what? I can't do anything for my people. We need help from Q, and of all people, Q, right?
Yeah,
terrifying.
And go ahead, Og.
I also think that the fact that there is no central, there was like any villain can be scary in that, but like a performance by an actor helps to kind of basically take some of the rough edges away from it in that. But here's a villain in a series in that where there is no central figure to fix on. It's just one after the other in that, which it really reinforces the otherness of this race, and the fact that like we haven't got that anchor to hold on to in that,
and going off on that, like you said, like not being able to find a central figure or someone to reason with, the Enterprise and Starfleet, their first mandate is to explore and to reason with at all costs. And you cannot, and you have never been able to do it with the Borg. And we're going to come to that in Voyager, right? Because you start to think, oh, maybe you can reason when the Borg are backed into a corner. But even then, it's lies upon lies. And I can't wait till we talk about the Borg Queen more because
I know.
Sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Well, moving on, as far as first encounters go, this was a humbling experience, especially for Picard, most of all. The Borg represented the first threat against the Federation that offered no viable solutions, and I think we should discuss why. I would like to point out that, like in these episodes that we've highlighted for this, Picard it plays kind of a central role in it because it really is a humbling for him, and this is the beginning of that humbling. He and the crew can usually find a solution in that by the end of an episode. In that, by the end of this episode, in that there was no solution, as we pointed out, and Picard was forced to drop his veneer of
this was the
certainty.
This was the audacity of Starfleet at this time, right? They still think, like even now, like we're still dealing with repercussions of them still thinking that they're the shit and they're the top shit and they always will be. And that arrogance is what causes the Borg to kick their ass here. And it's all the troubles we've seen in like past series, even at the end of Prodigy, like when they're just like, you know what, we'll just send more ships. Well, that'll fix everything. Right? Not even without figuring out what's happening. They're just like, nope, just send more ships because we're the best. Like that arrogance, man. I love that. This is such a good parallel with the human race. Man.
Eric, you just hit it on the fucking head, right? It is a great parallel for the human race. And honestly, it's a great parallel for America, right? Oh, we can't blow these guys up? Yes, we can. Load more photon torpedoes. Load the phaser banks up again. You know what? Even if we can't destroy them, we're still going to shoot everything because that's what we do. Because bang, bang. That's something like as an adult now watching these episodes is just like, it cracks me up. It's like, why are you wasting your weapons? I know you're going to die. Like, right? You think you're going to die. Like Riker's literally about to invest in both worlds. I'm getting ahead again. Like ram the ship. But still, it's like, load the photon torpedoes. They don't do anything, but let's do it anyway. It's America and it's the human race. It's that defense mechanism.
Yeah. And even when they realize that doesn't work and they try to run, all this thing just keeps coming faster and faster. And as Q points out, you're just going through the motions here. You're going to exhaust your resources, they're going to overtake you, and you're going to be theirs. And that, good luck.
Yeah.
And this was, like I said, this was the first humbling moment that Picard has. I think in the early days of the show, and that, but it sticks with him. I think
as it well should, and I think that's what terrifies him every single time he encounters the Borg, and that anger comes from that terror. And I love that that's something that he carries through till now. Like he still has it, or at least he did the last in Picard. Whenever we saw the Borg stuff, like it's not something that's easily like. I assume everyone at that first encounter has like tears from this. Like I could not imagine not like any of them not having PTSD from being the first people to encounter the Borg.
Yeah. I want to read this comment from Picardo Chris over on YouTube. He says the Borg patience is really creepy awesome. That's what makes them so scary and evil, right? It's just they do things on their time, because guess what? When they do come around and when they do come knocking, there's nothing you can do about it. Yeah. And Hawk, going back to your question about like this being the first threat against the Federation that offered no solutions, I want to get your take on this. It's interesting to me, and this is going to get, I think, into you going to best of both worlds, that despite the fact that Enterprise made first contact with the Borg, no one from Enterprise was put in charge of that task force. It was this young up-and-coming lieutenant commander in Shelby. It's interesting, and going back to maybe Eric's point, maybe like everybody on board the Enterprise was too traumatized to.
It's the outside like perspective, right? If you're there, you have a certain perspective that you will never be able to change. But if you're on the outside looking in, especially with something that they have never encountered before, so it's all logs and footage, like they can be studied without having the nightmares of that experience happen to them. That's why they have like those councils that aren't part of like, they have like external councils for,
yes, I know what you're saying,
for reviews and stuff.
Yep.
It's true, and that nobody on the Enterprise was ever put in charge of any sort of like threat assessment or development of weapons. And that I think I did want to point out is that I think as a viewer in that the appearance of Sonia Gomez was kind of meant to parallel our experience to it in that, because that was her first week on the ship, and she encounters the Borg and that, and her in that scene of her in the engine room and that, like freaking out when like you found out 18 people died and that. That's us, It
is.
Yeah.
She still did great for herself, you could have trauma and still succeed. Good life lesson, by the way.
Exactly. So I think this takes us over to the best of both worlds. We're going to start with part one, obviously. The fight they knew they were not prepared for has arrived at their doorstep. Commander Shelby is introduced to the series, and with her the news that a defense against the Borg is still only in the planning stages. As well, conflict builds between her and Riker, as Shelby apparently is very eager to replace him as first officer on the Enterprise, and that since those offers keep coming in for Will, but he just won't, take the chair.
What are you still doing here? Exactly. Love that line.
Nobody tells you how much fun it is having your own, being in the big chair. Is this conflict a way of illustrating the advantages of the Borg's single-minded unity over Starfleet's individualism? I mean, like, this seems kind of like the worst time to be infighting over like position or jockeying for position, given the threat of the Borg. So, what do you think?
I never saw it as that. Like, I knew that she wanted the position because she thought Riker was going to leave, but she always seemed like that person that wanted to be a captain eventually, and she knew that this was the step there, and being the best of this is how she knew that she was going to get to that step. And if that pisses off Riker, he's going to leave anyway. So
there was that comment by Hansen in that about how there were all those voices in the room, like when they were initially putting together this this commission to develop some sort of defense against the Borg, and there were so many voices going on in the room. Shelby was the one who cut through the tension. and cut through all the BS and that and got them like on track. She made them like a single mind, a collective finally. And for some reason that just seemed to stick out, that like they were still a bit divided, Starfleet, not knowing what to do and that, and not knowing who should do it, versus the Borg, who are just all in. There was no discussion, no dissent. They knew exactly what they were doing and just went ahead with it.
I gotta say, I'm with Eric on this one. I never really saw it that way either. I get what you're saying, but I also saw, I have always loved Shelby, right? Like I'm still sad that like we didn't get more of Shelby.
Yeah, we only got her in Lower Decks, which
for like
she
2
didn't even
have speaking. Like no speaking lines. She was almost like you're saying how there was infighting, but she was almost Starfleet's, again, getting ahead because we didn't know about the Borg Queen at this point, but like she was Starfleet's Borg Queen, right? She brought a voice to Starfleet's voicelessness, right?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't there. Nobody could come up with anything, because I think they were probably infighting amongst themselves, because they probably had age-old ideas of like, well, what did we do when the Klingons were an issue, and what did we do when the Romulans were an issue? And no one was thinking, this isn't the Klingons. This isn't the Romulans. These people don't care. They don't think like that. All they want to do is conquer. There's no negotiating. And Shelby understood that more than any of them. So Hansen is really smart putting her in charge and bringing her on board the Enterprise. I mean, listen, they lose if she's not on that ship. Is she brash? Yes. Did she go overboard once or twice? Sure. But she's right about everything. And I think she was a very important voice. So I don't see it as this like counter to the Borg's, unilateral mind. I look at it as like she was literally the counter to that.
Yeah. Not necessarily. This is not to disparage like Shelby in any way, in that she's the one who, like, as they said, she cuts through all the noise and that and gets some focus. And she's the one who, on the bridge and that makes that snap judgment and that, saying modulate the frequency of your phaser blasts.
Right.
Smart.
It's like, yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Starfleet's answer would have always been like, trying to develop a bigger, more powerful weapon. Right?
Yep.
The Borgs, it required somebody who thought out of the box or out of the cube in this. Haha.
Yeah. And they did such a good job showing that in every scene that she is constantly thinking, right? It's like, and they did a great job staging that. I'm horrible. I don't know who directed Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2, but
I should have looked that up too.
But the direction, especially in was it part 2 where she tells Data to modulate the phaser frequency, or part 1 to get the tractor green off?
That was part 1. Yeah.
So part 1. Everybody else is puppy-eyed on the bridge. They don't know what to do. They're just hoping for the best. I mean, they're probably going to die, but she's like, you could see her eyes just going and going, and she gets up immediately. And Riker, if you look at Riker during that scene too, Riker's just like, oh, okay. Like, he's dumbfounded because he finally knows, oh, okay, she is something, like she's important. So yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, just looking here.
Oh, for the directors?
Yeah. Actually, Cliff Bowl was the director of
okay.
Yeah. So.
I feel like I knew that and I forgot.
It's shown up so many times, and he just never kind of put it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, so the Enterprise's encounter with the Borg, they receive a single communique from the ship that surprises everyone: that Captain Picard has been singled out by the collective to act as their liaison, to give a familiar face to their invasion of Earth. And much has been made about why Picard was chosen in that, but this choice was meant to show the viewer how someone who was so exceptional within Starfleet was turned into nothing more than a tool when he was assimilated into the collective. And that this was as far as like, when I was a kid watching this show, and that single shot of him transformed into Locutus, it held my imagination for an entire summer.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts on like the uniqueness being taken away and him being turned into just a tool?
I never thought of him as a tool. I thought it was worse than that, because they were always they were always a collective, and then they decided to have a figurehead. and that made it worse. And that it was Picard, who was the smartest person that we saw, and like one of the most trusted people, one of the most brilliant minds that we've seen. The fact that they chose him as their figurehead meant that they were down for business and they knew what they were doing, and that was terrifying, especially when you I didn't know what a cliffhanger was as a child. The fact that they ended that episode and you're just like, well, Riker's gonna fight Picard now, I guess. And like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about how like awesome that was as a child. It's still awesome now. Like, I watched it again today and I was like, this is such a good show. But just like him being the face of something that was faceless is terrifying. And probably like when Riker, you can see Riker, his calm, cool headed and all that, but seeing the man that he like the whole episode has looked up to, and the reason why he didn't become a captain, like you can only imagine.
He has to pull the trigger too,
and he has to be the one. Yeah, exactly. That has to do it to this idol of his, like that. That's incredible. That's incredible writing. That's incredible staging.
And he tries to defend himself against Guinan, right? He's like, perhaps you didn't see, but I just tried to kill him. And Guinan goes,
but not really.
But not really, right? Like it would have been easier if he was dead, right? Because it's just a Borg and his enemy. But he's still over there. That's the face of the man that you respect more than anyone on this earth. And no matter what you say, you still have hope, and you're affected by it. And that's what the Borg wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I feel like this episode is perfect for getting ahead because the Borg think ahead and just are always thinking 1,000 steps further, right? The Borg Queen, who is on board this cube, we know from First Contact,
yes,
has to have gone through the scenarios of what if we do lose, right? And they do lose. But what have you done by losing? You've taken your biggest and brightest captain, the captain of the flagship. Oof. Freudian slip, maybe. The captain of the flagship, and made him the face of the enemy. And in Family, the next episode, you have them in La Barre, France, and the mayor wants to, give him the keys to the city for being a hero. He's not a hero.
Yeah, no.
Whether you want to say it was Locutus or Jean-Luc, he's still responsible, and that's not the way I look at it, but he's still responsible for 11,000 people dying and 39 starships being destroyed. And you know who else looks at it that way? A lot of people in Starfleet. Ben Sisko being among them.
Mm-hmm.
You have instilled fear into Starfleet for the next go-around, which is why, come First Contact, Picard is on the sidelines for fear that he is going to turn or something is going to happen. It is a brilliant move
because it's
on the Borg's part.
The technology of the Borg is still so foreign to the Federation, even up until First Contact, even past First Contact. Like the fact that they could possibly have him as a sleeper agent, man, they must have had eyes on Picard the whole time. Like that,
but
that would have been so cool.
And it just goes back to your point, Hawk, about how he's nothing. He's reduced to nothing more than a tool and a pawn for later scenarios. Right? It's just this genius move, and it works.
What always stood out for me was the fact that, like, Picard. When I thought of Picard, I always thought of a huge volume of Shakespeare in his study, and that the impassioned speeches. Like the fact that, when he took the moral high ground, you had no doubt that was, the right path that, anybody should be taking in that, especially after watching Measure of a Man, and the impassioned speech and in actually managing to convince people in that sentient life by our narrow definition, is simply too narrow in that, he was the best of humanity, and in one single move in that, all that humanity was just drained from him. What we were left with was just, like I said, a tool. It's a human face for people to see in that before they were eventually assimilated.
And let's look at one more thing. The Borg Queen's plan works, right? the Enterprise, for all intents and we're going to talk about this more later in the show, for all intents and purposes, Starfleet lost the Battle of Sector 001. They lost. The only reason that humanity and Earth are still around today is because the Enterprise got lucky. They got lucky to get caught in the whatever wave, the time travel wave. I actually like almost know that movie by heart. I had the name of it almost memorized. It's at the tip of my tongue. But they get caught in that flux, right? So they're able to go back and stop them. Yeah, it's the only reason. They get lucky. I think, but her plan works to perfection. Yeah. To perfection.
Yeah. It wasn't just about, it's like here's somebody you recognize in that. It was about instilling fear too. Yep. Because Picard was like, known throughout Starfleet and that, and like showing his face. Yeah.
Yeah, no, and if you want to take it in another step further, that fear goes decades later into what we know for Picard now. In that Janeway, one of the most respected admirals, now I'm getting into Voyager, I'm getting really ahead. One of the most respected admirals goes to bat for 7 of 9 to join Starfleet. And that fear from him becoming Locutus decades ago is still there, and they say no.
You know what's even more brilliant about this? It's that they also made one of the greatest minds doubt himself forever. Forever.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
Like even robot version Picard now, like still doubting himself because of this one little failure of him being captured.
Yeah. And like, he should have been used to like, that, as being a captain in Starfleet and that, it's like, you don't always get to come out of everything looking like a hero in that. I mean, like he survived the whole thing with the Stargazer and that, and a court martial.
Hawk, you're the biggest Picard stan in the room. Mm-hmm. I want your honest take on this. After the events of Chain of Command, do you think that they should have forced Picard to retire? After everything that he had been through as a captain, both on the Stargazer and the Enterprise.
Yeah, I mean, like if it had been up to me. I mean, like he was very good at like compartmentalizing, that's one thing Picard did really well was compartmentalize his feelings and emotions and that, he was seen
as his little ships.
Like he
my bridge.
His personal life, like he lived like pretty much like a monk or something, just, he had friends, but really, he kept everybody at arm's length. Everything was duty to him. He could compartmentalize his emotions. Yeah. If I was to make that decision, like it was something he definitely hid how badly that hurt him. Confiding in Troy and that, like it's like I really did see 5 lights.
Yeah,
yeah. It must have taken everything for him to like keep
going. Yeah,
but not just that, but to keep that from Starfleet. Because Starfleet should have been asking like. Are you okay?
Are you okay? Yeah.
Yeah.
Haven answers this question. I think it's a great point. After Chain of Command, I think he should have been shuffled off to a desk job at Starfleet Command, at least temporarily, like something, right? Yeah. Maybe a promotion to Admiral so he could have a desk job.
But again, the arrogance of Starfleet. They're like, yeah, he's fine. Yeah, just send him back. I'm sure he doesn't need more therapy, maybe constant therapy for the rest of his life.
Yeah. That's an interesting point too, and that is like, as someone who's a public face of Starfleet and that, would they want to shuffle him off in that and like, saying like, look, they really got to us. Yeah. No, or do they keep him out front as a showpiece?
Yeah.
We haven't even gotten into part 2 of this. So with Picard now Locutus aboard and the fleet left in ruins after the Battle of Wolf 359, Riker is now in charge of the Enterprise and tasked with finding any way he can to stop or even slow the Borg's progress towards Earth. Now, Riker's plan of action to kidnap Locutus may have seemed personal, not totally a practical decision, but it ultimately shows that he had to adapt to this new threat while making use of all the resources he had from his own collective. Thoughts on his strategy and why he considered this the best course of action? People were telling him to let Picard go and that, and his first idea was, we get him back.
He is, without doubt, one of the most loyal people in Starfleet. That might be his fault, but it's also what makes him so awesome. That scene in Picard season 1 where he immediately goes into first officer mode when he sees Picard again in his cabin is why I love him so much. And if it was any other captain, Picard, the Earth would have been decimated. Let's be honest. Like, he believed in Picard enough and his crew that they could find a solution to that problem. Like, he might be a trombone playing crazy adventure guy, but he's also a really smart person. He's been under Picard for a number of years, 3 or 4 years. At three years at this point.
At least 3 years up until that point. Yeah.
And even before then, they always said that he was such a smart kid. Like, just
he was the Shelby before Shelby.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he even says that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this was definitely the kick in the pants that he needed in that. It's like he had to find a way in that to stop or slow the Borg down in that. And also knowing that every strategy that they had developed at that point, Picard already knew, and now the Borg knew too. So what does he do? He employs a strategy that he knows Picard already knows. And this is a poker player in Will in that coming out, I think. Like making, because he used a plan he knew Picard would know while covertly initiating another plan.
And how amazing that they showed a poker scene in this episode, right? Just so this just show how good he is.
And he loses. And he loses. Yep.
Hey, Shelby.
Yep. There's a reason that Will Riker is my favorite Star Trek character. This is one of them. Because of a lot of what Eric said, but because he's also just a master strategist, right? Like, he is a really good first officer. He's not afraid to be emotional. He's not afraid. And listen, don't get Will Riker wrong. When Will Riker needs to detach emotionally, he can. Is it his first choice? No. And that's evident here. Like, this decision is both emotional and the best possible tactic that you could do when you're literally going up against the person who has, Deflategate's a bad example, but who has read your playbook. He's read and knows your playbook and knows every move you're going to do, right? It is cheating, and he does the best counter against cheating, right? He brings the cheater off of the field. And again, it almost doesn't work, right? Like, Data got a little lucky. It's taking a risk and it's taking a gamble, and it's what makes a great Starfleet captain. And it's what makes me a little sad that we didn't get Riker as captain in season 4. Even as a kid, I thought that. I was like,
I 100% thought they were going to switch captains at that point.
Well, apparently, and shame on me for not knowing this, I guess, like, during this season and going to season 4, there were some contract issues, and they weren't sure that they were going to get Sir Patrick back, which is maybe why they partly did this.
Ooh.
But I mean, man, like, I wanted Will Riker in command of the Enterprise. I'm still disappointed that we never got him as captain of the Enterprise, if we're being honest. But it's a great move on his part. Not much I can really say other than what I already said, and Eric kind of hit it perfectly. Yeah, Will Riker's a boss.
It's almost a shame the show was actually as successful as it was in that. It kind of kept everybody in those positions in that for the next 4 years going on. So.
I said it during our watch-alongs. Will Riker was XO of the Enterprise for way too long, right? Like, he needed a command way before that. Listen, imagine how good that show would have been season 4 on if he was captain of the Enterprise with Shelby as his number 1, and Shelby got to be a main character on that show.
I know.
Anyway,
that's a lot of ego, though.
Oh, it'd be so good, though. It'd be so good.
It was a good plan, though, and that it confused the hell out of Locutus and the Borg. It was like it was an attack that wasn't an attack, but really just just a distraction. It was the best kind of sleight of hand that they could pull off, knowing that they couldn't hurt them, but they could distract them long enough to pull off something a little crazier.
Yeah.
With Locutus captured and Data attempting to use him to access the Borg collective unconsciousness, the crew finds a weakness that it can exploit in Locutus and the Borg's interdependence. The Borg's inability to sever their link leads to Data finding access to their subroutines, while Picard struggles against the collective consciousness to reemerge and instruct them on their best course of action. I guess what I'm asking is your thoughts on how these events transpired and what we learn about the Borg from this, because they were still, the way they worked was still a little mysterious to us. The fact that when they captured Locutus, they found that we had seen Borg had die before and they were disconnected and but this was an actual living Borg, Locutus brought on board, and the collective couldn't simply sever him. We thought they just shut him off or just disconnect him, but they couldn't. And we learned this we learned about this fact quite a bit.
I always look at what happens in Best of Both Worlds and First Contacts and things that happen in Voyager as luck. That's the only way I could really look at it with the Borg, or what I was talking about earlier is one step further. I think that they got lucky. Like Jean-Luc was able to come out of it at the right moment. They had lost. They were going to ramming speed. They got lucky that Jean-Luc came around when he did and found the single exploit that he could. I don't know how much we learn about the Borg from this. Honestly.
I don't think we learned anything, did we?
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
all it is that they have different levels of function and security for that. But from that, we knew that from any computer, interface. Yeah. And that sleep is one of their lower ones?
Michael Kwan actually has a hilarious comment, but also kind of factual for this. The Borg didn't have a McAfee firewall for their housekeeping functions.
It's pretty low priority. So
yeah.
Says Matt Harker. I wouldn't put it off to luck in that. It's like I would, because that initial decision back in Q Who to board the ship and that was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Okay.
It was still their imperative, and it's still something that it's like we have to do this and that. This is the whole mandate of our job, and that is to seek out new life and learn. And they did that, and because they did that, that's where the idea for this.
Yes.
This came
also,
from.
they're the best of the best, right? Like this is the flagship. Yeah. So these minds, like if it was any other ship, they wouldn't have a Data to be there. They wouldn't have a Geordi to help out. Doing
or
his
Troy
thing,
to let them know.
Yeah, that they're actually...
that it was Jean-Luc instead of Locutus.
Yeah.
I don't know. I agree that it does help them get to this point, right? Because they know about the nodes and the subroutines and stuff. But man, it is literally all of the right things happening at once.
Yeah, it's very lucky that they had all these people in the right spot at the right time,
and lucky that none of them died during any attacks on the ship, right? I mean, it's writing, right? And but if you want to look at this as real life for a second, I just think a lot of the encounters with Starfleet and the Borg chalk down to luck.
I'm surprised that the Borg did not fire upon the bridge, which is on the top of the ship,
right?
And just with a big window in the front, just being like, "Hey, look at us, we're here."
Yeah,
it's always strange that they go for a random lower deck.
Yeah,
for the lower decks.
Well, they did target engineering in the first episode.
Yeah, this is true.
They wanted to take out the engines first, and that, and really all their functional weapons and that aren't designed to just destroy. And that most of their weapons are designed to take out a shield, take out your engines, and that, and slow you down. And that, in a way, you could see that's the Borg's kind of arrogance. It's kind of similar to Starfleet. It's like, we know what we're doing. We've got this. It's like we don't need to destroy you in that.
Again,
it's
why would you be afraid of ants? Right?
Yeah.
They bite, but
I also just want to say, I've said this a few times, but they were done. They were done. Will made the suicide order.
Yeah,
he made the order. It was going to happen. They were going to die, and there was still the chance that Jean-Luc and Data transmit the sleep order and it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Right? The Borg could have come up with a countermeasure in some time. It's just so many things happen to go right at exactly the right point. And again, we're talking about a television show and writing, but if we're looking at this and we're analyzing it as a possible real life situation, then it comes down to sheer fucking luck.
Yeah.
I also I can't imagine ramming that ship would have done anything.
I don't think it would have done anything.
No, you know why he made that decision?
So you didn't have to deal with the
So
repercussions.
people didn't get assimilated.
So people didn't
that's just-
get
So
assimilated.
people didn't get assimilated.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. He knew it wasn't going to do anything.
No.
Yep.
Maybe like the antimatter explosion could have done 10% damage to the Borg ship and that.
Yeah.
Does that mean that when Worf was in the Defiant and was like, rhyming speed, he was just like, you know what? We'll see what happens.
He was on a suicide run.
Yeah.
No, man, he was just being a Klingon.
Yeah, that's true. Today is a good day to die.
to die. Hi, Takako.
Deus Ex writers, and definitely yes, but for the purposes of our entertainment and that, we like to approach it as in like a real life, real life.
Obviously, these aren't things that we're thinking about when we're watching this, but when we analyze,
They're not, aren't they?
Not really. I sit there, this is so good.
Yeah, no, yeah. No, you're
I'm sitting there watching my baby, who's like, "What is going on the TV?"
I'm so glad your baby is still a baby. And that photo you sent me of her with you watching The Wire.
We only watched a little bit of The Wire. And then as soon as
but I know she's so young, she doesn't understand. It's like, ooh.
As soon as what's his name showed up, I was like, this is probably a bad idea.
Yeah, probably. Omar coming.
Omar, yeah, that's. Ooh. Anyway,
I think this takes us into I Borg, the last TNG episode we'll talk about tonight. We might talk about this.
We may lose patrons and listeners over my takes on this episode. Say it.
So the sole survivor of a crashed Borg scout ship presents the possibility of eradicating the Borg once and for all. But this course of action leads to grave questions about the righteousness of the plan and whether the threat of the Borg outweighs the threat of the erosion of the humanity that separates the Federation from the Borg. Like I said, I know like the collective had a lot of thoughts last night when we were doing the watch alongs. It's like, pack them off and put that virus in them.
That was mainly me, if we're being honest.
Actually, I felt like a lone voice in that collective last night. I was thinking, they've made the right decision in the end.
I agree with you, Hawk.
Yes. Right? Oh, yeah. Like in many ways, like I don't know if I should jump ahead in that, but no, I mean it was a good, the plan itself had a lot of merit. It's like an enemy you can't defeat in that through conventional weaponry, and that people go to unconventional means, and that's a military thing.
When I think of this, when I think of unconventional means, I always bring up one of the best sci-fi shows of the past 30 years, and it's Battlestar Galactica, because not only did you see war from the side of the suicide bombers, that's basically what this is, right? They wanted this person to be a bomb. And when we saw the Battlestar crew do that to the Cylons, what difference was it? It's a sound plan, but it's an extreme one.
Wait, Eric, what scene are you talking about in Battlestar?
So when they're on on the planet,
the colony,
and all the
New
crew,
Caprica, right?
New Caprica, all the people start putting bombs on, and then going into things like that's extreme to fight this evil that to get out of, but it's what they had to do. Like it's amazing, especially at that time when the world was really on edge because of Osama bin Laden and all of that terrorist activity. To see writers take it from the view that we would never associate with the Western world, because we would never think of that. That's crazy. That's Ronald D. Moore is an amazing writer, and the fact that he can take these sci-fi is such a good medium to take a look at different views of different people and different situations. It can't just be the Western or what we think is normal. You have to see things from that, and to make it to turn on its head. It's probably some of the best writing I've ever seen.
I just want to take a minute and go off topic and say that Ron Moore is the reason that I podcast and why I started podcasting, because one of the things that I looked forward to every week after an episode of Battlestar was Ron Moore's podcast doing audio commentary on the episodes, and it sparked my love for doing something like this. I also want to say that I think our watch along of I Borg was probably one of the best watch alongs that we've had on the Discord server.
It was fun. Yes.
It was fun. It had a lot of moral implications, a lot of disagreeing, agreeing. I think everything I've said tonight makes Picard's initial decision the right decision. And I don't think that it makes the decision any less severe, or the decision could still be wrong, but be the right decision, right?
Yes.
Is it wrong to commit genocide?
I wonder though.
Absolutely.
I wonder though if he did it out of fear, right? Instead of being a level-headed person. Like I don't blame him for this at all, because he was assimilated. But to go to the extreme because you're afraid of this thing, I that's what I took from it, is that's why he also didn't want to meet Hugh at the time. Like he didn't want to see this person as a person. Like he wanted to be the nameless, faceless enemy.
This takes us right into my next point, in that in many ways this episode was about Picard's journey and his experience with the Borgs up to this point. He was defeated by them in Q-Who. He was stripped of his individuality and freedom by them in BOBW, and now is presented of a way of enacting vengeance on them. So I'm sure that came into it. That was partly what was influencing him when he did come into this. That this was a tool which he could personally, get back at them. And with the cooperation and blessing of the institutes whose values he was sworn to uphold, Starfleet was like, great. They even gave him a shellacking when he didn't decide to do it. Would he have come to this decision to use Hugh to eradicate the Borg had he not gone through all this?
Yes. I think so, and I think Starfleet would have. And they do. Another Starfleet captain comes to the same decision.
Yes.
Right?
Janeway.
Like, his past experiences definitely are a factor, and it is out of fear. Yes. Those are all great points. But I think as a Starfleet captain, maybe who wasn't assimilated, but maybe survived the Battle of Wolf 359, knows what the Borg were capable of, were briefed on what the Borg were capable of, know that there's no defeating them, and going back to everything I've been saying tonight, that it's been a lot of luck that everyone's still around today. I think I still would have made the decision. I think Jean-Luc still would have made this decision. And I think most other Starfleet captains would have made a decision, because you know what? Correct me if I'm wrong, and people in the chat may disagree. I think that Janeway is more morally just than Jean-Luc Picard, and her older self still comes to the decision to do what Jean-Luc didn't do and goes through with it in Voyager. Yeah. So I think, yes, no matter the situation, and Janeway was assimilated in Voyager for different reasons. She was voluntarily assimilated, but not against your will, not like basically like rape, right? Like this is like Jean-Luc is, assimilated against his will. I still think that, yeah. I still think the decision would have been made to do it. And it is done, right? And no, you don't hear a lot of people in Star Trek fandom questioning Janeway for doing this, right? Like I've never had that conversation.
I find it funny that Picard, to convince Geordi about this plan, he was like, they used to use animals for testing things. And I was sitting there like, I don't know if you're making the point that you want to, Picard, at this point.
Yes.
Right? I'm like, that wasn't a good thing that we did and still currently do. But part of me was like, was he trying to tell Geordi, don't give this animal that we're gonna test on a name, because that's how you get feelings. Because that's sort of how I felt about it. I like it confused me, that scene. I was like, what are you trying to get to, and how are you trying to convince Geordi of this by using this analogy?
Oh, he was playing devil's advocate. So I think he was arguing a point he probably didn't even believe in at that point. Yeah. I guess, which brings us to the fact that he actually does get to know Hugh in that. And in it, he, it's not just the fact that, he sees like, Hugh has experienced what he, the first little bit of individualism.
Oh, can I interrupt you real quick?
Yeah.
Giraffe's like, don't what if genocide. Oh my God, which I will counter. I wrote a very, very long paper on the Rwandan genocide. I'm questioning it for the sake of the podcast and the fact that it's Star Trek. But this comment's great. Nobody questions Janeway because we're all scared of her.
Yes,
which is absolutely true.
Yeah, you don't go up against Janeway.
Huck, can I bring up one more point going back to like the what if? I just I want to look into the future a little bit of like what happens with the Borg after and what the Romulans are doing with like XBs and the Borg reclamation process, right? Not all the Borg on that cube are like able to come back, right? Like their parts and stuff are claimed. And the ones that do, that is not a painless thing to go through, right? Like the recovery is not good, and Borg are hunted down like later on. Like not all Borg get the not Cinderella story, but like the happy-go-lucky story of Jean-Luc and Seven of Nine, right? Like most of them will never ever have the opportunity to become de-assimilated and be part of this collective. So it's yeah.
But I mean, I think what really tips Picard over is not just the fact that he sees individualism in Hugh and that, but it's the fact that he doesn't want to deny other people who are victims of the Borg, because it's like those people, the drones that we see are all victims. No matter if they were born as a Borg or they were assimilated, they are victims of this.
100%.
Yeah, and in the decision not to go ahead with implanting the virus into Hugh and that, and instead he is allowing the possibility of them having a chance of freedom and that, and with freedom, it's never an easy path. It's like you said, not everybody gets like the survivor story of that Picard had in that, where he's tip top, everything's great, and
the XBs on board the what did they call it on Picard season 1, the Borg cube, the artifact. That's one Borg cube.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's one Borg cube.
Yeah,
out of however many in the Delta Quadrant.
And
and that they just happened upon that by accident. So
like I love the idea that the end of this episode is the hope that Hugh's individuality makes these people free, and that idea of hope and self being is something that every being wants. Like it's a great thought for any race and any species. Like that,
especially considering they live under a system of rule, basically that tells them no, like these things don't exist. They're irrelevant in that. They have
and like that's how rebellion started. It's hope. I watched a lot of Andor before this.
Yes, so good.
And unfortunately, and Eric, I know we talked about it before we started the show. Like you wanted to talk about Descent, but like besides Descent and some of what we see in Voyager, it doesn't work. Like it doesn't work,
unfortunately.
Yeah. I really do like Descent. I think it's a phenomenal look at the Borg.
Yeah. I just always found it the most disappointing of the Borg stories in TNG. It was.
It's not mainly about the Borg though. It's about Data and the facets of humanity, right? And technology. And like his journey through that, and I think it's a good parallel to the journey that these XBs ended up going on as well, right? Like, are they more man? Or are they more machine? I said human kind instead of man. Or being. I guess they can't be humankind if they're not humans. And I think that's what the start of the first episode is, and we even get to see the evolution of Borg and Data throughout those two episodes. Like I think it's a phenomenal look at both.
I always felt it. The first episode was great. It's like I was very excited because it was like another cliffhanger. I was like, oh,
I would say the first episode was good.
The first episode was great. It's just that you just couldn't stick the landing with the
the lore stuff is
The lore stuff overwhelmed. It felt you had two big bads in one single episode in that, and it just kind of felt overstuffed. And I feel like the writers just didn't know where to go with it.
It was weird that Data was a junkie for emotions. Like, I thought that was a weird way to do it. I understand it because he was new to it, but the fact that he craved it that much without having an emotion chip seemed weird. But it is, again, another facet of humanity that he was trying to explore. So I guess it's neat.
And he was so willing to hurt Geordi in that in order to get more, right?
Yeah. That was them trying to be edgy.
Yeah.
That's late 90s, they're early 90s edgy.
Yeah. That one just didn't work for me. That's why I didn't include it in this one.
That's fair.
So I think we kind of covered the topic around Hugh and that.
Yeah,
I find it really sad that Picard is the last of the TNG crew to see him. I was hoping that Geordi would show up because of how much they,
Well, don't get me fucking started on the waste of Hugh in Picard season 1. Like, it's such a you talk about like bad. I'm not going to use those words. You talk about questionable decisions. I'll rephrase and a meaningless death in a TV show. Ugh.
Like. If Geordi was there and he died, that would have been heartbreaking.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
Save it.
Yep.
So I think we'll move on to what rounds out the TNG's experience with the Borg and that was First Contact, the movie, the motion picture from '96.
I have one more thing to add after this too. So
okay. But it introduced a major twist to the Borg mythology with the introduction of the Borg Queen, a being that is, quote, the beginning, the end, the one who is many. I am the Borg. And according to Brandon Bragg and Raul D. Moore, she was an invention of necessity for the film. She was a focal point of interaction for the characters in the film because they said as they were writing it and that, it's like, there was no interaction with drones and that. And so it's like it was hard to build the tension around that. Her introduction was not without some confusion, given that everything we knew about the Borg up to this point shows a society that didn't have a hierarchy. But then again, the idea of the Borg itself as a hive, it always implicitly suggested in that
calling them bees all night, right?
Yeah, that there was some sort of matriarchal ruler to be at the head of the table. And right now, I really want to find out people's impressions of when they first saw her. What did they think?
They spoiled it in the trailers. I really wish. I really wish I'd just seen it in the movie theaters, but it was on the commercials and everything. So I was excited because it was new, and they also spoiled the Borg sphere, which I thought was stupid that they did that because I would have
90s trailers, baby. They haven't learned a lot since then.
No, they haven't. But like her whole persona was what really drew me in. Like she had this humanistic feel to her. She wasn't as cold as all of the other drones that we had seen so far, and that made her scarier. Was that you could relate to her, and what wouldn't she do for her family?
Kirk, what wouldn't you do for your family?
Oh,
Kirk.
No, I loved her. There was something. Also, I think I was 16 when this movie came out. 97, right?
96.
96. I was 15. So I was also confused because it's like she's hot, but she's also a Borg. I was like it was amazing. Like, and her rapport with Data and how it seemed like she had him like just wrapped around her like pinky finger made her even more dangerous. I loved her.
Promises, right?
Oh man, she was so good. That Alice Braga, phenomenal actress. Like.
Alice Cridge?
Cridge. Yeah. Who's Braga?
Brandon Braga.
Brandon. God damn it!
So fun fact time. Do I have my Eric button still? I do.
Fun fact time.
Undiscovered Country is my favorite Trek movie. First Contact's the movie that I've seen the most in theaters. I think I saw First Contact, and I'm gonna not hand up my nerd card. I'm going to put it sternly back into my pocket. I saw First Contact in theater 8 times.
Wow.
I loved First Contact, and I love the Borg Queen. And when someone else other than Alice Cridge played the Borg Queen in Voyager, I was very angry and very disappointed. Even though now she did a great job. I can't remember the actress's name, but she was fantastic.
Annie
but
Worthing.
no, not Annie Worthing, the one in Voyager.
Oh, Davidson.
Susanna Thompson. Thank you.
That's
Damn, chat, you guys rock.
We love you guys.
Everything about her performance as the Queen, just like you said in your description, Hawk, brings a whole nother level to the Borg and makes them even more scary, right? Because at first they're just mindless drones, they're zombies, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now there's a puppet master. There is someone pulling the strings, and that makes them even more cool and even more terrifying. And that moment, like where she, one of my favorite lines from the movie is like, Lakuta's like, I can still hear our song. Ah. Just like there's so many goosebump inducing moments between Locutus, Picard, and the Queen in that movie, and she's just so fantastic. And when Boing Boing gets to meet her, even better.
And the fact when we meet her, everyone doesn't know that there's a Queen. That means Picard has been holding on to the secret for years.
Or just buried it deep down in his PTSD,
I think she's,
right?
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, didn't somehow she suppressed her identity from him?
That would make sense.
That would make more sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's watch it again.
Dude, I'll watch it right after this pod. I will.
I loved her. I loved the change up. It represented like kind of a one-upmanship that like we saw like previously with like when James Cameron took over the Alien franchise, and that is like we've seen the drones and that, and it's like now we're going to introduce you to like the even bigger threat.
Yeah.
And she was fantastic in the role. I'm not even sure how she got that role, because pretty much the only thing I'd seen her in at that point was this small indie film, and it's called Institute Benjamenta.
She tells the story in an interview for the 25th anniversary they did last year.
Yeah. It was on their YouTube. I remember.
It was really good. You should find it. She tells the story about the audition, if I'm not mistaken.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I want to ask you guys, what did you think of her introduction? Because she came down head and spine only, and you're just like, "What is going on? This is amazing." Or at least that's what I was thinking.
I'm gonna get the you're such a dude moment here, but I went through the same thing as you, Eric. I'm like, oh my god, she's so gross. Oh my god, she's a Borg, but oh my god, that's kind of hot,
right?
Like the whole spine, like going into the body, and like you're a young kid. Like I'm a young kid when this movie comes out. My hormones are going crazy, and she's all of a sudden in a body with boobs, and I'm like, oh my god, that's kind of hot.
Yep.
Oh, okay, sure, but you're evil and you're bad, and you did bad things to Jean-Luc. Like, that's how I felt. That's legitimately how I felt. I was a young boy, and
but
there was a boob suit.
That makes
there was a boob suit.
That makes you
and
want
it was a person.
It makes you want to ask Julian how he felt when she blew on Data's arm and the hairs went up.
I'm not gonna lie, that scene did nothing for me, even as a kid. That just was like gross.
I was the
whole like skin on the circuitry was always gross to me.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
You love the machine horror though, Hawk. Like from all the Cronenberg stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Matt Harker in the YouTube chat goes, "It wasn't the boobs, it was the spine."
And let's see. Sorry, hold on. Michael Kwan says H.R. Geiger would have been proud of that reaction. Yeah.
Matt Harker says, "Got to keep this PG-13." No. This is only on Prodigy are we PG. This is a rated R show usually.
We're in the watershed hour right now.
This is the watershed hour. Yeah.
We're fine. It was amazing. It was like, in contrast to the lifeless drones and that, she was just dripping with personality, like almost literally dripping with personality. It was that reptilian logic, and the way she kind of tried to, it was the seductive aspect to her in that, even though it's like we knew her plans were evil in that, it's like she's that whispering voice in your head that says it's all right, everything's fine, just go along.
Yeah, do it.
Yeah.
Another
Jeff goes.
You can do another round of this raid Go for it. Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Trap goes, I leave for one episode and they're raving about Borg Queen boobs.
Yeah.
I know. We need you back as soon as possible to get this
Boobs
thing on track
ASAP.
again.
It's going to be 4 weeks, Draft. Imagine 4 weeks. And we haven't even gotten to 7 of 9 yet.
Right? Oh boy. Oh boy. So where does this leave us? Are we talking? I didn't rewatch that Lower Decks episode.
I didn't either. No, it's all right.
Which one?
The one with the Borg Queen and that
Wiz Boimler is
got
so
to
good in the
reprise the
Borg
role.
babies.
Oh, yeah.
And he's on the assimilation table and just like talking about how pale his skin is. Or
Oh, you need to drink more water.
like they're so pale that he's more paler and it's not good for his health. It's really good.
It was about how clammy his skin was and that. Oh god. Anyways.
That was the training one, right? Where he kept on going through the simulation over and over again?
Yep. Yep. Rescuing the poor
Yeah.
babies over and over again. Brilliant.
Got to get that perfect score.
I think that brings us to the end. So
You know, what I love about First Contact is that there are repercussions of everything that they did. And even the Borg, because we see that in Enterprise when we deal with the Antarctic or Arctic, the Borg that they
the
We
frozen
totally did not include the Enterprise episode.
that's fine. It's fine.
For good reason.
That was
Yeah.
one of the best Enterprise episodes, though, unfortunately. I really
It is
like that.
unfortunate.
But yeah, I thought that was really neat that there was no, it wasn't like what the events of First Contact were just like, you know what, they helped with the launch and that's it. No, there are the repercussions for also the Borg
Yeah.
then too. I thought that was neat. Enterprise regeneration.
Hawk, before you move on, we've been
Yep.
talking about this on the Discord for a while, and we've been talking about it, especially because Giraffe is gone for a month, and we'd like to have some guests. So MC, we've been talking about having you on the show forever anyway. So I'm going to do it right now since it is three dudes on the show tonight. It's getting very dude, and we're talking about boobs. MC, if you would take this invitation, or it could be for another episode, but we're extending the invitation to join us in 3 weeks for part 2 of Best of the Borg, for Voyager's Best of the Borg with Janeway and Seven. So we don't just talk about boobs.
Yeah.
Not
Be
that
our-
I don't
yes.
need to talk about boobs.
You are
but
cordially invited. Be our guest.
yes, MC, join
I
us
mean-
for
MC, if you want to talk about boobs, that's fine too.
yeah. But join us, MC, for the Best of the Borg Voyager episode. Anyway, Hawk, continue.
We are moving on. I think that brings us to the
And
end.
that
of
would still make me outnumbered with Canadians. Just saying.
yeah.
Yep.
A.
It brings us to the subspace to pull and the mailbag.
Oh, I still have the Uhura one up, so we'll use that one tonight, the Strange New Worlds.
Shipwide, Cadet Uhura.
Aye, sir.
Boom.
Boom. I'm just looking for the results.
Boom.
Yeah, I had to we had to do that late because I accidentally set the poll to end late. So.
Found them.
Cool.
So, I can handle this if you'd like.
Yeah, hit it, Hawk. It's your show.
All right. So we asked Trek Twitter what their most memorable Borg moment was from TNG, and they had this to say. 21% said first look in Q Who. 58% said Picard becomes Locutus. 7% said Riker's Gambit. And 14% said Hugh defying Picard.
It's hard not to vote for Locutus there.
Oh my God. Yeah,
Right.
like I said, my young brain transfixed at that moment for an
Yeah.
entire summer.
Yep.
Wondering where are they going to go with this?
Yep.
God. All right, so we move on to the mailbag, and who'd like to handle the first one from?
I'll
Captain
do
Idol?
it because I thought
Yeah.
it said Canadian Idol, but it actually says Captain Idol. I've been reading too much Canadian in the YouTube chat. Captain Idol wrote, "The Borg Queen. You think in such three-dimensional terms. Has always lingered with me, and I use it as a smirking, sarcastic insult at times, which no one gets."
I kind of love that though. Yeah.
Julian, take MCs.
MC, hello. Gambit is good. Is Gambit an episode of Enterprise? Which one's Gambit?
I think that's Voyager, isn't it?
He's
I
the
think
one
there
that
is a
throws cards.
Yes, that explode.
All right.
Mon ami. MC MC wrote Picard's confrontation with Hugh when Hugh stands up to Locutus. Yes, with Locutus. I love that part. It is the biggest shift in the Borg as both Picard and the audience realize that the Borg aren't just cyber zombies. Both Patrick Stewart and Jonathan Del Arco do a beautiful job of playing off each other, with Picard confronting his Borg past for the first time and Hugh becoming a full individual. Resistance is not futile.
Nice. So I'll handle the next one. Chris wrote, can I say all of them? The first meeting of them is an all-out horror movie from the 80s, which I love. Picard being assimilated and the fear that brought everyone is an untouchable moment. Hugh making a friend with Geordi was sweet and great development of the characters. So overall, probably when Data got skin on his face and his dealings with the Queen there.
All right.
So Eric,
all right.
take Tara's.
Tara wrote, at this point, I think I like the interactions with the Queen the best. So probably the super weird Data Borg Queen dynamic in First Contact. It was so creepy and unexpected.
Do you know my favorite part about that is the Borg Queen is not shook at all in that entire movie until the moment Data turns on her. And she yells, man, she goes, Data! And it's this great moment because it's like the first time in the entire movie where she shows any kind of like, I just got beat. It's great. It's a great moment.
So Julian, take Havens.
Haven wrote, my favorite moment when dealing with the Borg is actually a sad moment if we look back at reality. Step back to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. Oh, there goes, sorry. It would be how LaForge basically tells Ensign Gomez to brush it off about the loss of 18 people. My justification is that it shows the fact that anything could happen, just like in DS9. Nog lost his leg in the episode. It's only a paper moon.
Right.
What was that quote?
I hate that.
There was
scene.
another show that said something like this, where they're like, respect the loss, but born later.
Yeah.
I can't remember where that's from.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
What's that?
We'll have time to. It's like we'll have time to mourn our dead later or something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Like I understand that. He just said
I hate
it bad.
that line.
Yeah,
I hate that line.
He went about it the wrong way.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Just like Geordi in general.
So Lexi, hey. Lexi wrote, mine's from family, seeing Jean-Luc reach that point of complete breakdown in a show that often just moved on from everything episode to episode, seeing the follow-up to Best of Both Worlds be all about just how much damage the Borg have done to our hero, and having to deal with that, it's honestly brilliant. Nice.
I make fun of Geordi, but I love him. He's my favorite. He's like one of my favorite characters, which is funny.
Everybody makes fun of Geordi in that. Some of those, he has some cringeworthy moments in the series, but I still love him.
Anyway, Jesco, rounding this out, wrote, my favorite TNG Borg moment is watching Hugh slowly develop into having individualism and bonding with his friend Geordi. That episode never fails to bring me so much joy and then breaks my heart. Can't wait for them to bring Hugh back and show him happy and thriving. Fingers crossed.
I think everybody in the chat said it correctly today. Like, right? The cube, that artifact. No one actually dies on that artifact. Everybody's still alive. Marissa's still alive. Hugh's still alive. Everybody's
fine.
That's what that mist is. The fog is a self-healing fog. Right?
Even those ones that floated off into space, they're fine.
Yep.
That brings us to the end of this, our first look into the Borg and that. And yeah, join us again 2 weeks, from now and that, where we'll be tackling all the Voyager episodes. I actually wouldn't mind putting a call out there to the collective and that. What were your, Voyager has a lot of episodes involving the Borg and that. What were your favorite ones?
Yeah, we need to narrow that list down.
Scorpion.
We really do.
Scorpion has to be on there.
Big time. But yeah. Please, send us like some recommendations.
Can I announce the next episode, because
Please.
we have a special guest announcement, and it's gonna be really fun. So this month we are taking the time to get back into our Best of Species series, like we did tonight with the Borg, and it's gonna be no different next week. And we are bringing on the absolute expert that we know on the Ferengi. we are going to the best of the Ferengi next week, and one of our very own collective members, Jesco, is going to be joining us for that one. She has come up with an amazing watch list, just like this episode. Next week's episode is going to tackle the Ferengi on the Next Generation. Then she'll be back in 2 weeks' time to tackle probably what's better, the Ferengi on Deep Space Nine. So we're continuing with species, the Ferengi. It's going to be a blast. Can't wait to have Jesco on the show finally. It's going to be so much fun.
Do you want to see the sticker? The
yes.
button?
Yeah, please.
I found it.
For our year, for
Oh, no,
it went away.
Oh, that's my pictures of my kids. Nope, not that one.
Oh, that's it. That's right. Oh, it's so good.
The Delta is the forehead of the Enterpriseians.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it. Anyway, Hawk.
So that brings us to the end of an episode. Thanks again for everybody for your comments, for being a part of our collective, for showing up every week. And, we love you guys. For Julian, for Eric, for Hawk and that, I'd like to wish you.
And for Giraffe.
And for Giraffe, come back soon. Oh my God. I can't remember.
Thanks for beaming into our podcast today. If you want to keep the hailing frequencies open, you can subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. Like what you hear? Put in a good word with Starfleet and leave us a 5-star review.